We are live.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Martha. And welcome, Barbara, today, Barbara Giamanco. Thank you very much for coming on. Today, we are going to discuss great sales messages. Today is the 25th of February, Wednesday, as always, on #SalesEU, Twitter, and Google Hangout, which is fantastic. Barbara, welcome.
Thanks, Richard. It's a pleasure. I feel like I know you so well, and now we're getting a chance to talk to each other personally. It's awesome.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it is. It's always great to see somebody visually as well as be able to put a name to the Twitter handle, etc. Now,
That's
obviously,
right.
your Twitter handle is at Barbara Giamanco. Now, let's spell that Barbaragiamanco. But most of our people already know you already because you're on as a regular guest, etc., talking on the Twitter chat. But today we're just going to call you Barb because, of course, Barbara is your official business title.
That's
But it's
right.
Barb for ourselves.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Everybody else calls me Barb. Don't call me Barbie, though. That's the one. I draw the line there.
Well, Barbie, got it right. You know, funnily enough, you never come across as a Barbie, so I think you're good on that score.
Thank you.
Right, so tell me a little bit about yourself before we get going on the questions. Tell me what your website is, where you'd like people to go to get more information about yourself,
Great.
what you do, and how you approach the market.
Super. Well, thanks so much. So everybody can visit me on my blog at barbaragiamanco.com, and if you want to learn more about social-centered selling, you can get information there and link to the website. A little bit about me. What people should know, Richard, is I've been in sales for about 25 plus years. And before I started my own business 11 years ago, I worked for 4 great technology companies, the last being Microsoft. So if you look back up in the corner, you'll see a picture on the shelf there with myself and Bill Gates, which I've always been proud of. So essentially what I've been doing since I started my business, I have a real passion for people development and helping salespeople be the best they can be. And then along the way, because I'm also a technology geek, I started paying attention to social media tools and how they were evolving, and made a decision that I would spend my time really advocating and helping sales teams understand how to implement this new technology as part of their sales process. So that's me.
Fantastic. That is great. And I'll have to apologise to people in advance if you see me coughing in the background. It's because I do currently have man flu, which of course is far worse than regular flu. So, because it is of course man flu, so we're allowed to be more ill than young ladies. And it's in fact, it's scientifically proven as well. Men actually do get flu worse than women. And it's to do with the fact that women actually have a stronger immune system than men. So it's we're in fact the weaker of the two sexes.
Awesome. I didn't even have to say that.
Exactly. Brilliant. So thank you very much for everybody for joining the conversation. It's great to see everybody on Twitter, as well as yourself, Bob, which is quite good. We've already got people already chiming in. Wow, we've got quite a few people joining in today. That is
All
great.
right. Love it.
Right, so let's start with the first question and dive straight in. Today's topic is about great sales messaging. And of course, we've talked around this a great deal. Last week, we were talking about the importance of writing skills for salespeople, etc. And this naturally is an extension to that. And I think it's one of those subjects where if your messaging is wrong, then it's so critical to your sales process that it's ultimately going to be very, very poor. So thank you very much for coming to us with this topic. And the first question is, why do you passionately believe that sales messaging matters?
Well, the reason is if your goal in sales, and let's hope it is to get a sales meeting with somebody, then how you message, what you say in that very first interaction, and I would also say, Richard, what you say throughout every interaction as part of the sales cycle makes a huge difference in terms of your success. But starting from the beginning, you're prospecting, you're hoping to generate leads and get sales meetings, you got one shot, either on the email or the phone. And if you don't do a good job crafting a message that is relevant and speaks to what that potential buyer cares about, then you are deleted, and that's it. And not only that, the other reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I'm not sure that a lot of salespeople understand that when they send out sales messaging that it is spam or inappropriate or written poorly, then they harm their own professional brand as well as they're dinging the brand of their own company. So.
Hello?
Oh,
Richard? We
Yeah,
can't hear you.
that's better.
Now we can
Sorry,
hear
there we go.
my mistake. See, the flu's getting to me. It's not my fault. Uh, what I was saying was, you recently posted a message. Actually, it was on Facebook about a LinkedIn message that you received, and about how negative the connotations are of those poor spam-like messages, and they can easily be solved, I think, just with the right approach. And you don't have to turn around and push and spam to be able to engage with. In fact, that is the point. You have to engage with somebody first before you can turn around and make that sort of approach.
Absolutely. Well, and that particular email bothered me for a few reasons, and here they are. Number one, I'm not connected to this person one-to-one on LinkedIn. Number two, we're not following each other on Twitter. But that particular company just happens to have my email address because I participated in the summit they gave last year. So I get this message, and it doesn't say, "Hey, Barb, we don't really know each other, but thanks for being part of our summit. I wrote this post promoting our upcoming conference. If you like it, would you mind sharing it with your network?" Now, a message like that, I'm going to say, "Oh, sure, I'll take a look." And as long as it's written pretty well, fine. You're being really upfront. But here's what it said. The subject line was "quick favor," and then it said, "Please share my post." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Excuse me?" So just out of curiosity, I read the post, about halfway in, and then I realized, you created this to promote your conference. You weren't upfront about it. I don't know you. You didn't offer to do anything in return to help me. And so, of course, I deleted it. Now, what I won't do, Richard, even though some people on LinkedIn asked me if I would share it and tell them who it was, I won't do that, right? That's not me. But I do want to call attention to the fact that doing things like that don't help you. They harm what you're trying to do, right? If you really
Yeah.
want people to be helpful, then be genuine and authentic about what you're trying to do. That's, what can I say? I feel strongly about it.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm in two minds about the whole name and shame, because I think some people really. I guess if it's quite often, I see that salespeople are actually pushed into. You have to leverage your LinkedIn network. You have to push your LinkedIn
That's right.
network, which is a poor sales management attitude towards how social should work, and that shows me a lack of education in the marketplace. Um, but if it's somebody who should know better, then, to be quite frank, I'm fairly happy with them being called out. And if I'd been called out on that, if I'd done that, then I would turn around and say, you know what, fair dues, I've done it, mistake, and move on from there. I think then you can
Yeah,
realign the messaging.
it's kind of funny. I love that term, name and shame.
Yeah,
That's just not something I've ever really wanted to do. And because in a way, if you think about it, when you do that, now you're still giving them promotion. And I
that's
really
true.
don't want to promote what they're doing. And so, I'll tell you about a little project I've been working on related to sales messaging near the end that people can get access to next week after my Top Sales World article comes out. But I've been saving email messages now for over a year and having friends send me. This is not like just once or twice it happens. This is a pretty systemic problem that I think has to be looked at a little more carefully. And by the way, to be fair to salespeople, I also recognize, especially maybe in smaller companies, maybe somebody in marketing is writing that message, and then the salesperson is just cranking that out. But there's still no excuse for not taking that and personalizing it and making it a little bit relevant, for the person that you want the meeting with. Because if you only get one shot, then make it count, right? Up your odds of being
Yeah,
more successful.
yeah, I agree, and I think you're absolutely right as well. From a salesperson's perspective, what you have to realize is that you're damaging your credibility as well as the organization's as well.
That's right.
And you need to build that credibility. I mean, one of the hiring things that you see constantly for salespeople, of course, is they want you to bring your address book with you to the next job. So if you manage to turn around and annoy your address book, it's never going to work, is it?
No, and
You
that's a really good
value in
point.
yourself.
That's right. Our networks are assets, and I really think that you want to treat them and nurture them and protect them, and and just think about the impression that you're creating in the mind of someone. And by the way, this email that we're talking about that I referenced on LinkedIn yesterday, it's not the first time that other people in that company haven't done the exact same thing and have come to me and said, hey, share this. And it's like, okay, at what point is it fair to expect that maybe they should think about how they can reciprocate and perhaps help me? Just
Absolutely.
saying.
Yeah, earn the right first. I think that's the foundation of social, of course, isn't it? Pay it forward effectively, which is, turn around, earn that right to ask something like that.
That's right. Well, and I don't know about you, Richard, but I'm young enough to remember when we didn't have all these social tools, and I think that whole mentality of being willing to do for other people first has always been one of the reasons why I've been successful in sales. I believed in that from the very beginning. What can I do to be helpful first, recognizing that will come around. And sometimes it's not always a one-to-one reciprocation. It may end up being I do something to help you, and then you tell 5 other people, right? So, but paying it forward, in my opinion, is just a good way to go about doing business.
Absolutely. I think for myself, it's more of it's almost a life culture thing, isn't it? It's the way you want to live your life, and therefore you can take it into business and wherever you want to, and work on that basis, and you're so much further forward, I think, and it does you good in the entire business world and prospecting as well.
That's right, and I try to be consistent. I don't try. I really work hard at being consistent. So when I'm speaking or talking or writing and I'm suggesting to clients that this is an approach that they ought to be taking, well, I practice what I preach, and I do take the same approach. Before we got started, I was just saying to Martha how I've got friends all over the world. I love Skype, and I've had younger salespeople reach out to me and ask if I would mind mentoring them or spend some time with them now and again. Absolutely. Am I getting paid to do that? Well, not technically in money, right? But there's good karma currency.
Absolutely, yeah. And goodwill. And then, when you do an event, everybody steps up and says, yeah, you know what? I'll do that for you.
That's right. And other people have helped me as a result because they know I'm willing to help them. So I just think that's really important. It's even more important today that we be very authentic in terms of our brand. So, that's another reason why messaging is so important, because, people have short attention spans, right? So make it count, people, make it count.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to question 2. Otherwise, I'll get prompted. What are the sales messaging? Some do's and don'ts.
Yes. So we've talked about a few of them, but let me just I wrote down a couple of things to be sure I didn't forget them. But number 1, know your audience. An email that I reference in this article that's coming out next week. In the email, the salesperson starts by saying, our product does blah, blah, blah for CEOs, CFOs, operations, sales managers, training managers. I'm like, okay. So, and then the message didn't speak to any of them. And so, you've got to know your audience, because what a CEO might care about is going to be different than what the training manager cares about. So that's the first one. So then building on that, you want to personalize it. You want to make sure that it's very focused and that it's relevant. And, make sure that you're including, and when I say relevant, let me give a great example. It's not uncommon for me to receive emails that are clearly meant to attract an enterprise-type business, but I have a small business. So I will get emails and they will reference these huge companies. Hey, there's a reason why people at McKesson and Bain use our product. And I'm thinking, first of all, you don't realize I'm a small business. Secondarily, immediately I'm thinking, well, and you're probably too expensive for me anyway, right? So you want to make sure that it's really relevant. And I'm a huge believer, Richard, in including success stories that are metric-based.
Yes.
Right? So if you're going to appeal to me and you're going to say, Barb, we know that you are a speaker, and imagine you might be looking for more opportunities to speak internationally. We know you like to travel. what's happened with some of our clients who have used our video platform as an example. You know, you make it relevant for me, and then you let me know how other people who are similar to me are getting success, right?
Yeah.
And then I would say, do keep the message short. Jeffrey James actually wrote a great piece about this as well, where he was talking about, you know, make the subject line consistent with the message, keep it short, keep it focused, and tell people exactly what you're looking to do. So those are some do's. What would you add?
Me? Oh, I would say my pet hate is the use of buzzwords and overly complicating the language which you use in an email or any sort of messaging and response that you have to people. It's a pet hate of mine. Just fill it with jargon and it switches me off. You know, I almost need, particularly given the field I'm in and the fact that I don't have too much time to read things, I want bullet points. I want it direct. I don't want to have to, I want to be able to skim read it almost in the first few sentences and understand what you're after, what you're trying to achieve, and some proof points, as you say. Give me some metrics. Love that. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
anybody who quotes, for example, CSO Insights at me, I'll immediately take notice because they've got some great statistics.
That's right. And you know, and so you just tapped into some of my don'ts, which is the buzzwords and the jargon. I mean, you are going to die laughing. Now, again, I did not name and shame, and I love that. I'm gonna claim that, but I'll credit you, of course. I took the company's name out, but this email, when you see it, you will just die laughing because it is filled with stuff that makes no sense whatsoever. It's this completely nonsensical email that maybe somebody thought was clever, but I would say that's a don't. Don't try to be clever. You know, it's not about you. Don't pitch your features. And frankly, Richard, I think that sometimes salespeople expect buyers to do their work for them. Don't give me a link and ask me to go look at your website and figure out what it is you want or do.
Yeah.
I mean, who has time for that, right? Nobody has time for that. So, and then the other thing I would say is, and I see this in almost every email I ever receive, oh, I'd love to get a meeting and spend 15 minutes to learn about your business. And go to the website and figure it out, and then if you're going to give 15 minutes with a target buyer, don't you want that 15 minutes to like further a sales opportunity? Why would you waste it trying
Absolutely.
to get your buyer to tell you what you can learn on the web or that somebody's LinkedIn profile? I mean, come on.
Yeah, or the other good one, of course, is tell me about your industry. And it's, well, it's on my website. Go read about it. Do your homework first.
That's right. If you want to do business with me, figure out what's important to me. And while I will agree with some of my peers who say you can't find every piece of information, no. But if I'm approaching Pipeliner as an example, I know who your competitors are. I'm going to pay attention to the CRM space. I'm going to do my homework to make it clear to you that 15 minutes was well spent, knowing that what I'm really trying to get to is moving that a potential opportunity to some real conversations down the road. But you know, that's I see too many people wasting these opportunities, Richards. It's really a shame. Again, if you get your 15 minutes with the right buyer, don't waste it. Don't waste it.
No, absolutely.
Did I say that?
I think it's one of those things that where the problem I see with that is if the initial approach from the salesperson is like that, then it almost tells me that your company culture is like that. And then if your company culture is like that, once I've been sold to and I've bought something, that's going to continue into your post-sale environment, and that just then doesn't work for me.
Well, that is a great point, because as I reread this email that I was using as an example, as a compare-contrast, I thought to myself, holy moly, what would it be like to be in a meeting with this guy? And I thought, yeah, that's not a meeting I'd want to be in. I mean, really, you make a good point. So I read this email, and so I'm already kind of saying, if I sat in a meeting with this person, they would be random and all over the place. There's no way that they would, it would be a useful use of my time, right? So,
yeah,
to me, this is some of what we're talking about is just the blinding flash of the obvious, and yet I'm seeing the mistakes continue on and on and on, and I hope that we can get some people to recognize how important it is that they pay attention to this.
Yeah, I think that's. I think most things though in the sales arena are certainly the best concepts are nearly always common sense.
Sure.
yet it appears to be obviously uncommon sense to actually apply these, because of course they're not applied on a regular basis. It tends to be best practice to apply this sales messaging, etc. And the same is true for a number of other elements in the sales environment. It just doesn't seem that it is that common in actual fact.
I know.
Certainly. Or is
We
it
have
perhaps
a question.
We do.
But we have a question. Yes, James would like to know what are some of the C-suite audience value drivers?
Good question, and that it's a broad question, but if you're going to get an appointment with somebody in the C-suite, you absolutely need to demonstrate that you know their business, and you also need to come very prepared to bring fresh insights to the table, things they hadn't maybe considered, or bring some insight into problems you can help solve that they can't get those problems solved internally. And you absolutely don't want to waste their time. Let me tell you a short story about that, and it's a great question, James. So one of my customers here in Atlanta, a big transportation organization, I had an opportunity to meet, and I've been doing some work with them, and I had an opportunity to meet with their new CEO of one of their divisions. Sharp guy, had come from Wall Street, huge financial background. Now, I knew these things because I talked to, my contacts inside the company, and I did my homework and all of that, but he invited me into the meeting. But while we're talking a little bit, I said, hey, what do you think about salespeople who, when will you give somebody a chance to have a meeting with you? And he said, well, I think of this guy recently who did a pretty good job convincing me that 15 minutes of spending time with him would be really worth it. But you know what this guy did? He came in and he started to try and educate the CEO about best banking practices and best financial practices, because they sold some sort of a financial services thing. And my client didn't hesitate to say that young man was escorted out of the office politely in less than 10 minutes, right? So I want to hear what Richard has to say, but if I'm getting the opportunity to C-suite, don't waste their time, know their business, bring something to the table that they had not thought about or considered, and absolutely don't go in there trying to school them without knowing who they are. I mean, that just was ridiculous to me. So.
No, and I think it's interesting because you often end up having to educate them to some degree, and it's the same as with the whole challenger philosophy as well. If you walk into most C-level and immediately start challenging them, you're just going to get kicked out. So there's a mechanism, there's ways and means of doing this. So you can't just jump straight into telling somebody about how it's done. And education isn't necessarily telling, and it's about influence. So yeah, I think there's a step before that you have to get to, and the first thing, of course, you need to build a relationship, and you need to work out what are they after, and it does vary.
That's right. So, and by the way, you guys can tweet this out for me. Selling isn't telling, and Richard is absolutely right. So if this young man had come in and started the conversation by saying, I was really impressed with your Wall Street background, and clearly you have a lot happening in finance, and and kind of started to build a little bit of rapport. But the problem was he only had a few minutes of time, and the CEO was going to make a quick decision about whether or not he'd spend more time with this individual, and he rolled right into a pitch. And and so he lost any opportunity. Do you think they will ever get an opportunity to get back in front of that CEO? No, not happening. So James, I hope that answered your question and gave you some insights into what I think about those sorts of things.
Yeah, he said it was very helpful.
Okay, good. And thanks for joining, by the way, James, my new buddy. We connected in Twitter and have hung out in tweet chats, and now we're connected on LinkedIn, and looking forward to a phone call with him pretty soon. So it's great to see him here.
Excellent. James Eastling, yep. I can see that. Okay, why should sales reps take time to make their messages relevant and customized?
Yeah, I think we've really kind of nailed it. That if the goal is to get the meeting, then you really have to do a little bit of homework. And by the way, this extends into the meeting as well. So what I said earlier is that you need to consider how your interactions are going to resonate or not with somebody at every point in the process. So let's say you do a really good job with your phone message or your email message and you get that meeting. But if you walk into the meeting and then pitch, now you just shot yourself in the foot again. So I know reps complain that they don't have time, and I do understand that many of them may be feeling pressure by management who is just saying, who is measuring, in my opinion, the wrong activity, because what difference does it make if you send out 1,000 emails that are crap versus what if you send 100 of the ones that were the right kinds of messages that led to the sales meetings that led to qualifying and pursuing new opportunities. So for those of you who are working for sales leaders who might be pressuring you to try and crank out more messaging, do what you can to try and slow that down and do it in the way that we're suggesting, get the results, and then bring those results back and demonstrate that by taking a little bit of time to do the homework and better personalizing and making those messages more relevant, you can secure more of those meetings.
Yeah, and I guess to some extent that comes back down to knowing your target audience. So if you've got the right buyer personas and you are targeting the right people, then you can take a message and use it again and again and again with minimal customizations. Obviously, it's always better to make it tailored, but if you've got the effectively a good data list and your buyer persona is well thought out and your message is well thought out, then it allows you to do some of that volume type work.
Well, it does, and actually I have to thank you because you turned me on to a technology that I'd heard about but hadn't really investigated, which was Yesware. And so I then went on to talk to them and blog about them. And so they do that too. So in their system, which I think is really great, you can create templates, and if you're part of a sales team, they have statistics about which templates are actually getting a greater return on people either opening the message or clicking through on a link or making a decision to have a meeting. And so, right message and a way to kind of track what's working and do more of that. If you've got a template that's working, then use the guts of it, tweak it for that person, but that's going to get you a lot further along, I think. And in fact, I know at Pipeliner you're all very, very big and have done a great job in defining buyer personas, which is so important in terms of how you're going to message properly. So,
absolutely. No, I think that's a good point to raise. Actually, is even if you've got a tool which is going to do the messaging for you, the key element there is the feedback loop to know that actually your messaging is working. So then you can turn around and say, this is best practice for myself, for my industry, for my company, for the type of people we're targeting, and then you can tweak, you can do A/B testing effectively, can't you, to make sure you've got it right.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to give a shout out to Dakota McKenzie at Yesware. He was great. He took me through it. I've been using it, and the other thing that's kind of fun is I'll write a blog post about this. But how many times have you talked to somebody who sent an email? They're like, oh, I didn't get that email, and that happened like right after I set up Yesware. It was so hysterical. No, I didn't call them out on it, but I'm like, well, actually, you did, and I know you opened it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll tell you, a great tip for actually small businesses, and in fact it works for any business, is send an invoice via the email and track it as well. So then when they say, oh, I didn't get your email with your invoice on, we actually know you did.
It's kind of scary where we are these days with technology. But the other thing I loved about that particular tool, and there are others like them, of course, but I happen to really think Yesware has got some pretty good stuff going on, is that it also provides an opportunity for the salesperson who sent the email to know when the right time to engage with that person might be. Right? If you know they clicked a link or opened your presentation, now you know there's maybe some interest. And so, I think by using great messaging combined with a tool that can help you figure out when's the right time to engage and what's working and what's not, that's just a killer competitive edge in my personal opinion. So.
Absolutely, particularly if then you've got the links included in it, which Yesware's then going to track, or other tools may be available, which then goes to your website where you've got your tracking as well, and you can see how many pages they're looking at, what they clicked on, what piqued their interest most as well, because of course that means you can adjust your messaging to be more relevant to that type of person.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
Right, question 4. Can you share examples of good and great and horrible sales messages and explain why one will work while the other won't?
Sure. So I'm gonna share one today, but now I'm gonna give you a sneak peek into what's coming.
Dun, dun,
So
dun.
da, 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 da. So what I alluded to earlier is that I have been collecting sales emails that I receive and that colleagues have been sending me. And these are the best of the worst, folks. This is not
Cool.
the ebook you actually want to show up in. So what I did is I've created an ebook that gives examples, and I've got sort of 5 rules, like starting with 1, know the audience, and then I'm sharing some examples of what actually came to me, and then I'm contrasting that with what I would have done differently. So that ebook's going to come
Okay,
out
sounds good.
next week, right?
So
So
it's
that'll
available
be
next
fun.
week from your website?
It'll be available next week, late in the week, probably Thursday, because I'm going to wait till the Top Sales World article comes out. But yeah,
Yep.
and then people can get the ebook. But in the meantime, I have a message that I wanted to share with everybody today. So here's the message. Hi, Barbara. I have tried to reach you several times regarding how I just said XYZ. My video company has been able to help organizations like Social Centered Selling by providing a feature-rich online video presentation platform that allows you to quickly and easily assemble video content that works. Now, I'm already tired, right? And it says, there is a reason Bain Capital, McKesson, Genzyme, PGA, and many others use our solution. Although I was looking forward to speaking with you, I certainly don't want to be a nuisance. Or waste your time. To help me understand your situation, it would be helpful if you would respond to one of the following. 1, hey, sales rep, I'm not interested. Stop calling and email. 2, I'm not the
1
person you
sounds
should be
good.
talking to, right? Number 1, tell me if you're not the right person or you're not interested. And then the final one, I'm interested, but I'm busy, so call me on a specific date. I appreciate your responses. It will help me save you time and effort. Now, this email, Richard, it's not the worst of the worst.
I'm going with option 1. I'm the wrong person. Clearly, I'm not the person you need to contact.
Right? Well, and here's what, so I've seen this approach before. Somebody's training salespeople how to do it. And here's the thing. First of all, so the first one was I'm not interested. Second one, I'm not the person. I'm interested, but call me at this date. So here's what I have with that. First of all, here's how you know I'm not interested. I don't respond. Okay?
Yep.
Why am I going to take time to come back and email you? Second, and let's start with the most important thing.
Well, actually, if you think about that first one, what it implies, I guess, is the fact that if I don't reply to you to say stop, you're just going to continue to spam me until I eventually say, no, please stop.
Right? And that's a nice approach, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, I like if you're not the right person. Well, dude, if you'd looked at the website, you know I'm the right person, okay? I own the company. So it's pretty obvious. But the very first sentence is what really got me. This person starts off with a lie. This person had never called me, and I had never seen an email from them, ever. All right, and then they tell me about these big enterprise companies who are benefiting from their platform. Well, how does that really apply to me as a small business? And then I feel that this approach, again, I get it. Somebody taught them how to do this. Why is it my job to educate you on what I need, or if I'm the right person, or it just. Again, this one's kind of tame in relation to some others that I've received, but it's not good. I use it in a lot of presentations, so it's getting, people see it and they know that that's not really the way to go.
Yeah, I think it strikes me as not horrid. It's not absolutely horrendous. So actually, it could quite easily be something that a lot of people are sending, particularly when you turn around and if you take something like Aaron Ross's cold calling 2.0 and that principle and just extend it slightly, what you're asking, if you looked at his original messaging, it's too many questions, etc., and too many options, rather than being simple and to the point. but it's kind of like an extension to that. So it's almost like a marketing person has got a hold of it and said, well, actually, the things we want to know are these 4 things, so let's send that and
Right.
try and get all of that in one email, and then we've got everything covered, and we can tick the box to say it's not a good contact, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, that's right. And so, and I would love to see most sales and marketing teams, start to get some outside perspective, because it might sound good to you when you're all sitting around kicking around the idea in the conference room, right?
Yeah.
But how it feels to the person who's receiving it, that's a different story. So let me contrast with one that I came up with, and now it probably could even be a little bit shorter, and I can't guarantee 100% that this would get a meeting, but I think somebody would pay a little more attention. So how about if it went something like this? Barb, I know from hearing you speak, reading your blogs, and following you on Twitter, you are someone who is interested in technology that helps you build your business. That's true. One of our speaking clients told us that in 1 year they had doubled revenue, profits, and the size of their customer base as a result of incorporating video into their marketing mix. We have a feature-rich online video presentation platform that may appeal to you as a speaker. If you'd be willing to give me 15 minutes, we could determine if there was a fit. But in the meantime, I've included a worksheet you might find useful in planning your next speaking engagement. Now, that just was off top of my head, right? Because I wanted to have something to contrast. But you see the difference? It's personalized to Barb. It's letting me know that other people have definitely gotten some serious results out of this. It's clear they know I'm a speaker and I do look at technology that might help me improve my business. So good shot, I'd pay attention to somebody who sent me a message like that, right? That's worth 15 minutes to find out a little bit more. What do you think, Richard?
Yeah, I do. I think that's right. I think the first thing it says is, I've looked into you, I've done my homework, I've checked into the background, so therefore I believe it's worth spending my time talking to you. And, I appreciate people who'll turn around and say, look, I'm time constrained, you're time constrained, so let's do this quick if you can.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what it says in that first sentence.
That's right. And, and giving somebody, and by the way, I can't claim credit for that idea. Actually, somebody who I knew them through some of my networking circles had sent me an email to see if I would be interested in talking with them, but they also did include kind of a cool little worksheet tool. And I thought, that's a great idea, because you're giving me something of a little bit of value, something that maybe I can use to improve the business. I thought it was a nice touch, and so I've decided that that's I'm going to borrow that. That was an A+ in my opinion, and I think it's a great idea to give somebody a little something that maybe they can find useful, which then again is probably going to lead to them saying, oh, hey, okay, well, yeah, this is a person I think I'll spend some time with.
Yeah, I used to do the same previously. When I used to run my own company, I used to be a CRM reseller. And what I used to do there was I would turn around and give away certain integrations and utilities for different CRM products. And the idea was purely that I could turn around and talk to people and gain a level of engagement. And even if they didn't particularly want to speak to me because I might be in the wrong geographic, they've already got somebody they're dealing with, it just enabled me to have that conversation. And quite often, because there were good things that I was giving away, my brand would stay in front of them throughout their entire time. So at the point where they turned around and went, actually, I'm not as happy as I used to be, I want to move on to something else, it's, oh, who's that guy that gave us that free thing? Yeah.
That's right. They thought of you.
And it worked.
That's right. And that extends now into social, that whole concept. And it's counterintuitive for a lot of people. There are people out there, they want to charge you for every ebook they send out, or, and I'm just not that person. I like the idea of giving something to someone. But I hadn't really thought about it in the context of if I'm approaching somebody for the first time via an email, I hadn't thought about maybe giving them a little something to kind of think about. So that was a great suggestion, I thought.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the concept then is you obviously need to have more in your stable so you can give them something else next time, potentially, etc. So
that's right, exactly.
But then I guess that comes down to the whole messaging plan, because what I often see with sales in particular is everything is just a one-off email. There's no thought or campaign considered into the logical steps and the sequence you're going to run through to get from A to B. And that's right. That is important.
Yeah, before we jump to the next question, your buddy James has another question. He would like to know, how do you identify your target audience communication culture to help craft your message?
How do I identify the communication culture? Well, I suppose what I would do, and Richard may have some thoughts on this too. So this kind of moves us into what we were going to start talking about, the process that I use. So if there's a company that I am targeting that I want to work with, let's use Pipeliner as an example. Let's say I want to do business with Pipeliner. Then what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to follow them on Twitter. I'm going to follow their company page on LinkedIn. I'm going to start to get to know some people in the organization. I'm going to watch their Hangouts and Twitter chats, and I'm probably going, because I use Inside View as a companion business intelligence tool. That tool gives me a lot more depth because it's gathering and sourcing publicly available data across the web and in social channels. So I can learn about their culture through press releases, financial reports, what other people are saying about them. Could be leadership presentations. So that's kind of the process that I use. And can you be 100% right on if you don't have a relationship with somebody? No, but you know what? There's enough information across the web that can give you a pretty good sense of what the company and culture is like. And then what I would do is I'd start asking people in my network, what do you know about this company? Have you done business with them? What are they like? What are they, are they really stiff and formal? Or are they a little more loose? So I think that's a great question. There are lots of ways to kind of gather the intelligence to help you. What do you think, Richard?
I think you need to differentiate between the company's culture on communication and the individual's communication preferences
good point.
As well.
Very good point. That's a very good point.
So, for example, there's an organisation in the UK, it's British Land Registry. They do a lot of architectural work, they do a lot of building work, etc. As an organisation, they aren't particularly socially adept, but there are a couple of key individuals in that organisation who are very, very active on Twitter. So I was helping one of our customers out, and they wanted to get into the organization, and they didn't know how to approach them. They tried calling them, they tried sending the blind emails, etc., and it hadn't worked. So they wanted to know how to engage. So I did some basic preliminary work, and it was pretty obvious that there's a PR department that you had to go through for that sort of thing. There's a marketing department which you could go through for that sort of thing. But they tried those, and it hadn't worked for them. So the messaging might not have been quite right, or it may have just been difficult to find the right person at the right time.
Right.
So my suggestion to them was, this person is particularly active on Twitter. That's your go-to point, because they're communicating regularly on social, and that makes them open to being talked to.
That's right.
Because most
that's actually an incredibly good point, because you want to learn about the company, but you also want to learn about the people. And again, that's why I like Inside View so much, because I can get deeper insight on the company and the people that I'm targeting inside that organization. I suppose if we think about it, Richard, if we think back to when we, and I'm going to date myself here, I remember when we didn't have all this stuff. That's how we did it. You found people in the community, or you met somebody at a networking event who worked for that company, and you got to know them, and you figured it out. It's just now we have more opportunities to be able to do that, both at a company and personal level.
Yeah, there's just more technology to help or hinder, I think, is the answer to that.
That's right, exactly.
Okay, so question 5, I think we've answered some of this already. What process do you go through when you craft a message to someone, whether it's on a phone or an email?
Yeah, no, I think we've really kind of covered it. I do my investigative research, right? I learn about the company, and I try to figure out what's important to the person, and I'll follow them, and then I'll just think about it from their point of view. What would they care about? What do they talk about that seems to be important to them? And then I would actually write it a couple of times, and then I would probably have a colleague or two look at it, so that I don't have blinders on, right? So somebody else reading it, I want to see how they like it, right? So I think we've really kind of covered how I personally kind of work through that, and it sounds like you and others do the same sort of thing.
Exactly. I call it a sanity check. Always give it to somebody else to look at first, because it doesn't matter how good you are, you can always make mistakes. Having somebody else look at it and just say, yes, it makes sense. It's a sanity check for me.
That's right. So, you know, when I need to make sure my articles sound right, I run them by Lily, my puppy.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, my big boy's gone off to summer camp at the moment, so no barking in the background on this session, which is quite good. Okay, we'll move on to question 6, as we've largely covered the question 5 process, etc. So
Yes.
question 6 is messaging matters in sales meetings too. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Can we please just ditch the pitch? Can we please get rid of the 85 slide PowerPoints to talk all about your company history and your products and your features and your... Nobody cares, right? They've found that on the web. Right? If you got the opportunity to be in a meeting with somebody, again, now what you want to do, so all the concepts we talked about with respect to the email, they apply to planning for the sales meeting. You need to know who's in the room and what's going to be important to them.
Yeah.
You need to have really thought about the kinds of questions that you're going to ask. And I don't mean tell me about your business. You know, get some insight into what their business already is. So I think the problem, Richard, is that many people, when they get that meeting in person or on the phone, they want to do one of two things: go straight to the feature dump or drag you through a demo.
Absolutely. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's what's the term? Show up and throw up?
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, they just turn around. Yeah, they go through all the feature sets just in case one thing meets your requirements. It's the shotgun approach versus a rifle.
That's
I think
right.
It's much more important to be targeted about what you're showing them. So CRM is a classic example. There are so many features in CRM products these days, half of which nobody uses, etc. And none of it's relevant unless it's relevant to you as the buyer. So
That's right.
show them what they need to see.
That's right. And the way I look at it is you need to come in really being fully prepared. You need to understand the problem that you and your company can help solve for a potential buyer. And it takes a little work to figure out what's important to them and what they're trying to do and you know, all those sorts of things. So there again, when you get the opportunity for the sales meeting, I think what's happening, Richard, is sometimes people are going in with the notion of, I'm going to close in this meeting. And,
yeah.
Right? And depending on what you sell, if it's a small widget, or a friend of mine said, yeah, if it's a pack of gum, maybe you can get away with that. Right? But if you're, especially as you move into larger, more complex selling, that first meeting is not the place to try and close. You want to try and discover and advance the opportunity and move it along as quickly as you can. But you know, the demo may be important, but until you're super clear on what they want, need, or you're helping them to really flesh out what they need, it's too early. And besides which, there are a lot of people who can't draw the correlation between your demo and how it's going to help them fix whatever it is they're trying to resolve.
No, absolutely. And you know, people are very visual, so they want to see their terminology, they want to see their customers, or whatever it's going to be, etc. So just turn around and showing your generic product, service, whatever it happens to be, doesn't always work. And I think that's a critical thing. I think for myself, really, walking into that sort of sales meeting, the most important thing is you've got to have a meeting plan.
That's
the meeting
right.
plan includes a list of the people who are there that you know in advance, some notes about what they do, their position, what you think they're looking for, so that you can correct it. Possibly some insights that you think you can give to each of the team players, so you can turn around and give them something back. You know, as we say, the statistics on value, etc. So for example, I quote about the statistic that 82% of CRM installations have no visible impact on revenue generation, which is a shocking statistic, because you know, one of the ideas for the sales team when they're buying a CRM is they want to increase revenue.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah,
that is the goal.
Yeah. So therefore, they have to understand why, or you know, you want them to understand why it's not generating those things, because that, for me, starts turning the conversation into, let's stop talking about product. and let's
That's
talk
right.
about what you're looking to achieve with the system. Because
That's
far
right.
too many people in my book, in our industry, walk in and say, I want CRM. Great. What does that mean? Could mean anything.
Could mean
So,
anything. Really, the truth is you got to know what problem it is they think they need to solve. And it's kind of funny because as you and Martha know, I accidentally missed last week's Twitter chat because I was preparing for a sales meeting that I
prepping.
was going to be part of that afternoon. And, and I knew who the people were in the room, and I was on their LinkedIn profile, and I was trying to get some sense of what would be important, and I knew more about their business. And of course, I had been through the RFP that my business partner, she had responded to it and all that sort of thing. So I was prepared. So when I went in there, I didn't need to ask them. Here's I think of it as that's what word I'm looking for. Don't interrogate, but investigate, right? Get
Yeah,
clarification around some things, but ask questions that clearly demonstrate you've paid attention to what's important to them. And one of the biggest ways that you can do that is when you come into a meeting prepared, you demonstrate that you respect their time, and that's a big deal.
absolutely. Yeah, if they've given you their time, they are giving you something actively giving you that. I
That's
think,
right.
yeah, that's one of the things as well, isn't it? In the meetings, it's language matters, which again is messaging. Don't
That's
ask
right.
them why, because why means they get defensive and they have to position themselves. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
ways of asking the same questions.
that's right. I like how and what questions. I learned that years ago
Absolutely.
when I got certified as a coach. Yeah, I like the how and the what. How is this going to impact your business if you don't make a decision quickly? What will be the ramification if you don't move on this for another 6 months? Because those sorts of things, you're right. It's not personal. And you are pushing a little bit because you want to get them thinking about what's going to happen if they keep dragging on the process. Oh, you said this problem was important to solve. Well, what's getting in the way of you doing that kind of thing?
Absolutely. I think that's
Yep.
very, very
Super.
true. Next question. So, how can sales reps leverage social media, and how does the messaging strategy change if it does at all?
Yeah, I think with social, and we've talked about this. We've kind of interwoven this throughout the course of the conversation today. I think with social, um, I look at it as being a little more personal, sort of one-to-one, be a little more real and authentic, and the strategy does change. I'm seeing far too many salespeople use social channels to broadcast spam. So just because you can does not mean you should. Right? You know,
Absolutely.
you want to use social as an opportunity to start building interpersonal relationships that lead to those opportunities. And also, it's an opportunity for you to demonstrate who you are. Are you credible and capable in your field? Are you sharing relevant industry insights that potential buyers are going to find interesting? Are you giving value to the network so that people want to refer you to other people? So I think that unfortunately, Richard, we have sellers, and there are probably lots of reasons for this, but they have this assumption, I think, in their mind that somehow using social channels is a shortcut. And it's not. I mean, you still got to
No.
build relationships with people. What do you think? I mean, you're pretty active in social. Why do you do it?
Because I do generate leads from it is
Yeah, there you
the
go.
answer. And also for myself, it's more about educating myself than anything else, so that I can stay in touch with the market, what people are looking into, and get best practice. So for example, I read your blog on a regular basis, the blogs you tweet, because they're obviously good things to go and read, so that I can stay top of my game. And without staying top of my game, how can I be an effective and efficient salesperson?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's there's an incredible amount of learning and things that you can use to build your skills. And, I mean, I think it'll be cool if today some people took a couple of ideas from what we've talked about and make that part of their practice and try it out and see what happens. But then the other part of it is, listen, when you've been engaging with people, or maybe you didn't realize they were reading your blogs or your posts, but all of a sudden they reach out to you and they say, oh, I'd like to connect, or gosh, I really enjoyed that Google Hangout you're a part of.
Yeah.
Now you have an opportunity to start building that relationship. But what I want to caution salespeople is just because somebody does that, that's not the signal to pitch.
No.
But it does mean they've now opened the door for you to build a stronger relationship. And probably a high likelihood, if you approach it correctly, that you could get them on the phone with you for 15 minutes, but spin it so that you learn more about what they care about and find out how you can help them.
It's the beginning of the journey, really. And
That's
I think
right.
that's, from a salesperson's, I think the problem is that people they treat it just like email. Fire
Yes.
and forget. Fire and forget. You know, I just turn around, post this, done, doesn't matter anymore. Somebody responds, oh, fantastic, that means you want to buy. I get on the phone, I call you straight away. Hi, you want to buy? No, your stuff was just interesting. I was just wondering if you had any more information. Very much like that. And I think socially, as an actual fact, it's a longer prospecting mechanism than most people really appreciate. But once it starts to get there and gains momentum, it's a very, very good one. And I would say that it's very similar in many ways to referral marketing.
Yes.
You only have one person referring you, it's going to take you forever to do any business. But because of the nature of social, you can turn around and get lots of people referring you because they trust you, because you're authentic and you give out good information, etc. And you help.
That's right.
And then you'll get a lot of referrals coming in.
That's right. And a lot of, many people know the story of how I was able to have the great honor of being published in the Harvard Business Review in the summer of 2012. And that happened as a direct result of social media. But unbeknownst to me, they had been observing me for 6 months. So somebody had heard me, their sales folks had heard me on a webinar, they started following me on Twitter, they started reading the blog, they signed up for the newsletter, and following what I was doing on LinkedIn. All this was going on, and I didn't know this, but then one evening in February of that year, I get an email and a simultaneous tweet from one of the editors saying, hey, we're going to do an updated review of how sales has evolved, and you seem to be the go-to person in social selling. Would you like to write for us? What?
Yay!
And I was like, of course, because they had been on my list for a long time, but very intimidating.
Absolutely.
It was awesome. It was awesome, and that led to a lot of business, believe me. So people need to realize that when you use these various channels and you're creating credibility, don't underestimate the power of somebody deciding to write an article or ask you to write an article, that's what's going to lead right to more sales opportunities. So I found it very helpful in the work that I'm doing, no question about it.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things with I've been finding with, in particular, and I don't do too many, I should actually do more, LinkedIn blog posts. They seem to generate a lot of people who are more likely to approach you for information, etc., than most of the other forms currently.
That's right. And the great thing about those LinkedIn posts, people can view your posts and they don't have to be connected to you yet, and then they can choose to follow your posts and they'll get notified. And so, some of the posts that I've written, sales VPs, who are somebody I target, have commented, and we're not connected yet, but what a great opportunity for me to start engaging with them. And then, of course, when the time's right, I'll come in and ask for the opportunity to sit down and chat with them more. But that's kind of how it works. Again, it's back to our philosophy of pay it forward, help other people, share good content, make it relevant and valuable. People remember that. They remember and they come back.
Absolutely, and I think from a salesperson's specific point of view, if you've done some sort of post or your company's done some sort of post and they react specifically to that, then it's great, because hopefully you're talking about some issues in your industry and they've been able, or some good tips on what you should do, so to some extent the general area where they may have issues that they're looking for you to resolve. So it gives you a jumping off point almost, an opportunity to engage and start talking to them with those.
That's right. That's absolutely right. I mean, and that's a beautiful thing. By the way, if you are publishing posts, make sure that as people come in and comment, by all means, you need to come in and respond to them, right? Because
absolutely.
Don't post and run away. Pay attention to the people who are commenting and get engaged with them. You put a little of this effort in, and honestly, it doesn't take long. As you said, it kind of starts to build on itself, and it builds some momentum in life on its own. But I'm not going to lie to you, it takes work. But what part of sales doesn't take work?
Everything worth doing takes work. Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Okay, last question. What's the final piece of advice you would offer to any seller listening to our program?
So I'll keep it short and sweet. First impressions matter. Make it count, people.
Yeah.
Right? Think about the message that you're sending and how that's going to impact the person who's receiving it. If your goal is to get a sales meeting, you really have to take a little more time crafting messages that are going to help you achieve that goal.
Absolutely, I think that's well worth doing. I think it's an organizational wide thing where the entire company can help to get those messages right, and then as an individual you can refine those for the people you're directly dealing with. It doesn't have to be a lone sport. It should in fact be a team sport.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. Fantastic. I think we're about to come to the end of our...
I think we are. What a great discussion. Thank you so much for having me.
It was our pleasure. It was fantastic to finally meet you as well, which is great.
Yay! She's a real person.
That's right, yeah. You do exist, yeah. Well, thank you very much. It's fantastic having you on. And I hope you continue to join in the #SalesEU Twitter chats.
Oh, you know I will.
Your feedback is always welcome. So I've just tweeted out the fact that from next Thursday, so now you're committed to doing it, that your ebook will be available on sales messaging on your website. So do you just want to give a shout out about your website and where to get that information from?
Absolutely. So I'm going to put it on both sites so they can go to my main blog, which is barbaragiamanco.com, or they can go to Social Centered Selling, and that is scs-connect.com. In either spot, they're going to be able to get access to the ebook, and certainly if you feel inclined, you can connect with me, and I'll be happy to send you a copy as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Bob.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you know
you,
how much I
Mark.
respect all you're doing. Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye-bye.